Jimmy Cast.
Hey everybody, welcome to Jimmy Cast. Today we're talking about a subject that might be a little touchy, but you know what? It's an important subject to talk about because I think it's something that we all face from time to time and should really hear how other people have dealt with it. And that is the subject of when to let somebody go, when it's time for somebody to get kicked off the ship. And Doug, do you like firing people?
No, I don't. That's the last thing on my job description that I ever want to do.
I hate firing people. I love lifting people up and encouraging them and empowering them, and but sometimes it's just got to happen.
It does. But hey, Jimmy, before we get too crazy into this, I just wanted to share just a couple stories with you real quick. Just some fun stuff that happened this past week. All
right, but before you do that, I got to say, hey, welcome to Jimmy Cast.
Thanks.
I'm Jimmy DeGroat. And we are sponsored by Jewelry Store Training, the best training available out there, because I do it. And the wonderful folks at In-Store Magazine. Thank you, In-Store, for allowing us to have the opportunity to let jewelers around the world hear what is going on in our crazy brains. So we have Doug Meadows right down there in Marietta, Georgia, and he is our co-host and a wonderful friend of mine. So, Doug, tell your stories.
So just real quickly, this past weekend, I took the whole shop. So I took 3 people and me, and we went down to Stellar Settings in Lafayette, Louisiana for their bench jewelers workshop. And
Lafayette, vacation capital of the world.
Exactly. And so it was a fun road trip. We learned so much. I mean, if anybody's never been to a workshop or a bridge event down at Stellar, they're great. And I did get my Stellar mug finally. Ashley was kind enough to provide that for me. Thank you, Ashley. And
oh, nice.
But so we're there and we're getting a demo on casting, and all of a sudden my phone rings with FaceTime, and
okay,
and I'm like, oh great, and it was Joseph, and so I'm panicking a little bit, thinking that something's happened or gone wrong, which in a weird way it had, and so he gets me on FaceTime and he goes, hey Dad, how'd you like to make 1,000?
Wait.
Oh what?
That was Doug. Who got you on FaceTime?
Joseph, my son.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
He's running the store.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. He's running the store while I'm away, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, how would you like to make $1,000 today?" And I'm like, "Is it legal and is it okay?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." So apparently we had a ring come in that we had sold, and it got sized. And during the sizing process, it went a little bit smaller, and one of the little diamonds on the side got loose. And so then one of the other jewelers got it tightened, and then they gave it back to me. And I failed to do the final check on it. I just assumed everything was done. Well, it had never gotten polished. And so Joseph's calling me in a panic because he doesn't know how to polish. And he's like, give me a quick lesson on how to polish a ring. And so over FaceTime, we are teaching them how to polish a ring. And they
No wait. Was this baby rough? I mean, really rough?
It wasn't super rough. I mean, we'd sized it and sanded it, and so it was a little rough. Okay. But it was just down at the bottom of the ring, so it wasn't too drastic. But they did a great job.
Okay.
And got it delivered, and everything was great. But it got kind of comical.
FaceTime polishing.
That's right. So, anyways.
Wow.
Back to firing people.
Well, okay, so the reason we're talking about when to let somebody go is because it's come up with me recently through Jewelry Store Training, and people call me and email me questions, and that's how we get the topics for this, of course. But, you know, it's so difficult, and there are so many situations where it's time for that to happen, and usually it's time for that to happen. The most predominant situation is a person who just doesn't play well with others. Remember that from grade school? Doesn't get along well with others.
That's right.
This is anything from folks that really kind of think they know it all, don't have anything to learn. They're not coachable. They're not manageable. They do things their own way. Um, and then there's, of course, people that are very much an island up unto themselves. And these are sales stealers. These are people that, in general, create discord among the group, right?
That's right.
And there was a situation in my life where here's the really weird twist. So often they're the top seller, they're the top producer in the store, you know,
Yeah,
and that's what makes this subject so difficult to talk about and to also come to the conclusion that we need to come to, and that is, how do I fire my top seller? Are you kidding me? So I had the situation in a store that I was managing, and it was just what was happening is the entire group was brought down. So you've got a store of 8 employees. One of them is an island unto themselves, and so they weren't a team player, and they were often creating problems within the group. So now I've got attitude problems, I've got store culture problems, and the potential for wrongdoing on folks' parts. And you know what? It was just a situation where it took a lot of a lot of deep meditation and prayer and thinking about what's going to fix the whole group. And well, anyway, what happened was, and here's what I recommend for every situation like this: you got to give them the 3 strike rule. You've got to give them, you've got to give them due diligence. And I'd always think to myself, I'm not quitting on you. I'm not quitting on you. You're my top producer. We're gonna make it work. So you give it your all. You give it your absolute best effort. You meet with them once. You meet with them another time. You meet with them a third time. It's 3 strike rule. Each time is documented, right? I think Brad Houston would tell us that.
that's right.
Each time is
Yep.
documented. Written documentation and signed by them. So all you HR people will be happy with me. But what happened with us is when we couldn't resolve the situation and ultimately had to let this person go, what was amazing was the benefits of everybody coming into my office one by one saying, we'll cover that person's hours, we will cover their goals, we will make sure that this store grows. To not to spite this, but because of what you've done. You've shown that you respect us as a team, and we thank you for this. And you know what? The store just flourished. It
That's
flourished.
great.
You know. So do you have any stories about situations like this?
Oh, I've got the bad stories where I didn't give the 3 strike rule, and we just let somebody go. And this is before HR was a popular word, or a
Mm-hmm.
necessary department. And we I've always mainly hired kids probably under the age of 30. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the Whether it be a jeweler, whether it be a sales associate. And This little girl, she was probably 16, 17 years old, and
Okay.
we ended up getting the call from the father, and he was pretty upset with us for the way that we handled it. And so it was a big learning curve for us of doing those 3 meetings and doing some documentation along with it, letting them know. I mean, sometimes what I'm looking at is, have I failed? Have I not trained them properly? Have I not set
Right.
the proper expectations? The last time
Right.
we were talking with Brad Houston, he was talking about giving them goals, giving them things to achieve, and if they're not achieving that, then addressing it. And 9 times out of 10, if there's a problem, the first thing I look at is I look at myself and I wonder, again, did I not set those proper expectations? And did I not train them right? did I not give them all the tools that they needed to succeed?
Right.
And if I
Yep.
did, then then you can start addressing things. But and then on another crazy note of letting people go, sometimes it's not just culture, but it's they're stealing from you, and
Sure.
and
Absolutely.
those, you got to nip that in the bud right away. And we had a situation one time where, so lesson learned, I'll never hire anybody under the age of 17 again. So in my state,
Okay.
in the state of Georgia, if somebody is stealing from you that is 16 years or younger, you cannot prosecute them. Basically, all they get is a slap on the hand. And so
Ooh. Okay.
um, I had this little girl. She was working for me. She was 16 years old. And I get this anonymous phone call from somebody, another jeweler, and they said, "Hey, are you missing anything?" And I'm like, "I don't know, am I?" And she goes, "I think you might be missing a big diamond ring." And it turns out that there was
Okay.
a carat and a half diamond ring that we had sized, and the girl that was working for me stole it, and she was trying to sell it. And so we arranged for the sting. I said, "Well, listen, can you do me a favor? Can you go ahead, if I provide you the cash, can you go ahead and buy it from her so that we can get this all documented, and then we'll just call the police on her." And so that's what we did. We gave her the money. She did the transaction while we did the photography of it. And so they I don't know, they got TV shows on this about how stupid people are that steal.
Sure.
But
Yep.
so she came to work. So we did the buy at 3:30 in the afternoon. At 4 o'clock, she comes into work. At about 4:10, 4:15, her little friend comes in to the store we were in, and went on a shopping spree of buying jewelry with this money that they had just sold, got from us.
Okay.
And so we called the police and just had them come on over and literally arrest her in the store and try to set an example.
Uh,
And
yeah.
but what it has done for me, it has allowed me to let future employees know that we are not afraid to prosecute. So if you do get caught stealing, not only will you lose your job, but you will also get prosecuted. And I think that's an
Mm-hmm.
important expectation to set ahead of time with people, that you know if you start doing that kind of stuff, because unfortunately that's
Yep.
not my only stealing story that I have, but I don't want to bore you with all those.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'm sure if we had a call-in show, I bet we would get dozens of
yes,
them.
yes, yeah,
And the here's the sad thing. We just want to be we just want to help people. We just want to give people good
yeah,
jobs. We want them to produce for us. We want them to be happy at their work, as we talked about with Bill Becker last time, with store culture. We want to create a wonderful store culture, but sometimes you're just going to have those people that don't want to play with your rules.
right,
They don't want to, they're going to go against the grain. And and it's sad, but the world is full of people like that, and especially in a world where we're lucky to have people working for us in the first place, right? you know. Um,
uh,
so
well, have you ever had
anyhow,
an employee fire themselves?
mm, no, tell me more.
Well,
Have you?
in a weird way, yes. I mean, so years ago we took on the David Geller theology of everybody was on commission. And,
Yep.
for some cultures and some people, that's an amazing system. And, so we tried it for a season. And I had probably three or four people that just couldn't make any money because they couldn't sell. And so they just let
Mm-hmm.
themselves go. And so
Okay.
one of them was my dad. And that was really one of the main reasons we did it is I love my dad. He's a great guy. And he retired down here in Georgia for a while, and now he's down in Florida.
Sure.
But my dad loves to talk, and he doesn't know how to quote a job, and so he would first of all get up and talk to the customer, talk to him forever, and then way underquote the job, and then take forever to do it, and then go deliver it. And so with the commission, he got a commission off of selling it, he got a commission off doing the job, but he couldn't make any money because he was spending way too much time in underquoting. And so it was a solution
Sure.
to a tough problem for me of how do you, work with family in this situation.
Yeah.
But I had a couple other girls that it really worked out well, that I didn't have to fire them. They fired themselves. They just came up to me and said, "Hey, we can't make it. I can't make any money doing it this way." And I said, "Well, okay,
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
really sorry to see you go, but it did what it needed to do for me." So
Yep.
that
Yep.
that was one crazy
Uh,
thing.
I'm going to bring it up here on national radio, and I can't believe I'm doing it, but it has worked. It has worked. And that is, whenever you're near them, just think, go away, go away, go away. The vibrational patterns of uh, it's incredible. And it works. I mean, I could tell stories about times where that has worked. Just think, go away, go away. Never say it out loud, but just think it. Okay, so then a friend of mine up in the northern parts of the world called me recently, and he has this employee who she just won't play by the rules. She is a negative Nelly. She is just an unhappy person from the get-go. Whether it's unhappy in life, marriage, I don't know, just all around unhappiness. And what she does is she brings that into the store, and so it's just one of those situations where, gosh darn it, I've got a team of people here, and you're spoiling the team. What's that? What's that old saying about one drop of something spoils the whole?
Yeah,
Do you know what it
I
is?
don't know. I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank on that one. One bad apple
I
spoils
am
the
too.
bunch or something like that.
Yeah, too early in the morning. Anyway, so he said, "But Jimmy, she's my top producer. She's my top producer." And I said, "Man, you got to set that bird free, man. You got to set that bird." But it's the team will appreciate
Yeah.
it. Let's just face it, and it makes the team better. And it's that culling of the herd, and. I think what you said and what Brad Houston was talking about, you got to give them the tools. You got to give them the opportunities.
Right.
One of the things, a little shameless plug for jewelrystoretraining.com, is I can say this stuff to people. I can tell them their breath stinks. I can tell them that, their clothes stink when they come back from their smoking break in the back, things like that. And so more often than not, a jeweler will call me and say, "Will you please train on this? I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk, And so I do, and I frankly enjoy it because I know how hard it is for jewelers to talk about. How do you tell somebody their breath stinks,
Right.
or how do you tell somebody, you're just not getting along with people. You're just not fitting in here,
Right.
or you're just not a nice person.
Yeah. And I
You're
know
not
that this is
happy.
a whole nother probably podcast, but really hiring for success. Finding how can we find these things out about people before we even commit to them, and then
Right.
how what things do we put in place to make them successful while they're in our
Sure.
stores. But like I say, those are
Yep.
two totally full topics of a whole podcast. But
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned it last time. You talked about the flag page.
Yeah.
You talked about the report
Right.
that you do. Which one is that? Was that from Janice MacTelcott?
Janice Mack, yeah, the PDP.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a neat one. So
Yeah.
I got to make a note here
So
because the flag page for me, if you go to flagpagetest.com, the flag page for me personally allows me to see what motivates people. It's what I'm going to be speaking about at the AGS show coming up here in Seattle in a couple weeks. Speaking people's language, and I think you're absolutely right. If we know what drives people and motivates them right off the get-go,
Hmm.
and we know how to speak their
Right.
language, we're going to have a much higher rate of success. As an example of what I'm talking about, folks, for example, I am a fund control country. So when you talk to me about something that you want me to do, you're going to use words like, "Hey, Jimmy, this is going to be fun. We're going to get this done. It's going to be done on time, and we're going to really accomplish our goals." So, and everybody's going to enjoy the process. Those are the words. Those kind of words speak to me. When you talk to Jimmy DeGroat about, um, you know, we're really going to go over the details with a fine tooth comb on this. We're going to take our time on this and make a
You
decision.
checked out.
And we're going to, yeah, we are going to see how we feel about it. And then we're going to pray about it. And then we're going to talk to some, you know what? You've
You
lost me.
lost you. Yeah.
I'm already thinking about the next thing I'm going to be doing. So my language is get her done.
Yeah.
Get her
Yeah.
done, and we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, that's folks, that's what Doug is talking about there in terms of what drives and motivates people and how to speak to them. And
But just to
but
back
anyway,
up,
we are off
I
topic.
know, but just to back up 1 second on, you know, not having to fire somebody because they stole something from you. We used to work with a coach from Chick-fil-A years ago, and one of the things that he taught us was to put systems in place to keep honest people honest. And,
Okay.
so making people know that you're watching the inventory, that you are taking an inventory, that you are watching the cash drawers, and that you've got almost like buddy systems, to where there might be a temptation to take something, that you've got a
Sure.
second person checking it, so that you don't have to fire that person because you've given them that temptation
Yep.
that is above what they can handle. And next thing you know, they're
Yep.
stealing cash from you, they're stealing jewelry from you, whatever. And,
Right.
we all start justifying it at some point in level. But, just put those systems in place to help keep honest people honest. That's why we lock our front doors.
Absolutely. And you don't need to be a 12-store chain to have those systems in
Exactly.
place.
Yep.
You guys can all do it with checklists and good accountability to each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely. So the moral I guess is, we talked about it right off the bat, but it's you got to give them 3 strikes.
yes.
And we got to have that talk with them. It's got to be documented. It's got to be written and documented. And we just want people to be good. We want to give people a chance.
Yeah.
We want to give peace a chance. So, but and I think there is help. I think there is help for people like that. Okay, so Doug, let's just bring up here in closing, if somebody is watching or listening to us right now, that is one of these people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there is a plethora of situations that's involved here, and frankly, you probably need life help and good psychological, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. I do this myself. I do training on this for I receive the training is what I'm saying. And this is all about who you are as a person, how much peace you have in your life, and also crazily enough, dealing with the things in your past that happened between the age of 0 and 7 years old that formed your program in your brain. So many of us as adults are following a program that we don't even know is there. And it's formed in our brains for the first 7 years of our lives. We see how mom and dad, if there is a mom and dad, how they react to one another. And that is our program for love. We see how we behave and we say thank you and our manners. And we see how you pay attention and sit still in school and church and et cetera like that. and and so many of us are following that. We're all following that program, and what I'm getting at is the training that I've gone through recently is, number one, uncovering that program, learning what it is, and then how to work with that program. You're never going to undo it, but you can work with it, and so there is help for that, and I think everybody in the world needs that help, frankly. And then the other thing too is jewelry store training. Again, shameless plug. I apologize, but it's allowing Jimmy DeGroat and Doug Meadows and other friends of ours to talk to people and tell them and bring up the discussions that are a little bit uncomfortable for you in your store, and to sit with your staff and talk about. But are there any other thoughts, Doug, that we have for folks like this who are an island unto themselves and need help?
Oh man, nothing comes to my mind at the moment, but if you have that person that you're afraid to have that talk with, just do it. I mean, the longer you put it off, the worse things are going to be. And, the sooner that you can have that uncomfortable conversation with them and get that cancer out of your company, the better off everybody's going to be. And I know it is not fun. I know it is very difficult. Sometimes, it might be maybe just take them out for a cup of coffee, or maybe, get your spouse or somebody to go with you and take them out to dinner. And maybe you're going to reveal or find out something totally different than you'd anticipated. Maybe they're having a challenge at home, or, something else is going on completely. Maybe you can help find them a different job in a totally different industry. I mean, we all have friends in different companies, and maybe they would be a good fit in somebody else's company, but not yours. And not that you're trying to pawn off somebody bad, but maybe it's just not that right fit. Sometimes
it's not the right seat on the bus.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just finding them a different place in the company, if that's an opportunity. That's usually not an opportunity, and that's why I suggest maybe finding something to help them get into outside of your company. We had one guy. He was great. I didn't want to get rid of him at all, but I also knew that he needed more, and I couldn't provide it. And so we helped him best that we could to find a job outside of the jewelry industry completely. And he's doing great now, and he's a good friend, and he comes in all the time, and we have a blast, so, looking outside
and
the
that's
box.
all going to come back to you.
Yeah.
It's all going to come back to you. You get what you give.
Yeah.
So, but I love what you said, Doug. You got to have the talk.
Yep.
You got to have the talk, because if you don't have the talk, this person could be the demise of your business.
Oh, they could destroy you.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
It's the reality.
I mean, it's a time bomb looking to explode.
And there was a situation that I knew of years ago where customers would say, "Thank you for waiting on me. I don't want that person ever to wait on me again."
Oh, that's right.
My Lord, so and if you knew what was really truly happening in your business, or what this person is doing to your business, the decision would be much easier for you. And sometimes we sit in denial. So, have the talk, have the 3-strike rule documented, sit down, and signed, and then of course you like you said, you want to give them the best opportunity possible, even if it's not with you.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
So, all right, man. Well, hey, thanks for getting up. And wait, I'm the one that got
You're
up
the one
early.
that got
You're
up
East
early.
Coast
That's
time.
right.
I'm Midwest. So, thanks for listening to us on Jimmy Cast. Me and Doug are your partners in crime here, and we sincerely hope that we've given you something, an action plan, or at least something to think about with regard to your business and the folks that work for you. So,
awesome.
Thanks, guys. Over and out.
Jimmy Cast.